Hey y'all, this is Lauren from One and a Two Girls. We are going to have a Flosstube tutorial. We are making a mounted flat fold, and I can show you an example of what this looks like. This is mounted with fabric around. We add trim and a bow, and voila, you're done. So we're going to do a Lizzie Kate Flip It months, and this is November, so just finished this up on, I don't know, maybe one of our nightly Hallmark movies or watching a little bit of HGTV. So just finished this up, and we're going to create the mounted flat fold using this cross stitch and this beautiful fabric here that we have in the lovely fall leaf pattern. So I just want to go over some of the tools that we're going to use today, or that I have used in preparation for today. So first of all, I'll get the big one out of the way. This lovely white board is a Canson board. Let's flip it around here to the tag right here. This is from Hobby Lobby. It's called Bristol Plate, and it's a Canson art product, and you can see how nice and thick it is, and you can find it in the art department at your local store. You can also order it on their website, and if you want to order it for in-store pickup, you may do so by visiting the art department in the back of the store. So ours is very helpful in ordering a lot of that for us at a time. We're also going to use the Olfa cutter. This is actually, I stole my sister's brand new cutter because it works so good. And we're going to be using the Aleene's Original Tacky Glue, the Aleene's Tacky Spray. Ours is almost gone there, got to get a new one. I wanted to show you this Aleene's Turbo Tacky Glue with the sharp tip here. Let's see if I can get that off myself here. With the nice sharp tip. Always stored upside down. The same with this glue. This is the one that stands up. Always ready. Now always ready here. And some other important things are a ruler. So I use the OmniGrid. We definitely use the OmniGrid brand when we're doing these projects. And the little OmniGrid 6-inch rulers. We also use in our little jar here the quilting clips. I'm sure you've seen these. They can be used for more than quilting. And this is Warm and Natural. I apologize, I don't have the packaging, but this is Warm and Natural quilt batting. So we're going to be using that. And just some basic straight pins. And you'll need a paintbrush. I just used the little cheapy ones from Walmart. This is the Crayola brand. They're not really that cheap, but they're really good and sturdy for smoothing out the glue. You'll see that process. And you'll also want to have a glass with some water in it. Make sure you have one with a wide enough bottom so it doesn't tip over. And these are wood skewers. So I just get these in the Dollar Tree. Because I like the pointy tip. In case I get some glue in places, I can just easily get it out with that. Let's get started. So first thing, you want to measure your cross stitch, and we decide how far out we want to have the cross stitch fabric from the design. So we want to count out about, and every piece is different, but on this particular piece, it's about 1/2 inch from the design. So on all 4 sides, about 1/2 inch. And then what you do is take your straight pin and you'll count about how far that is. I have it marked here. So you'll count how many holes on Ada. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is typical for 14 count Ada. As a rule of thumb, we always do measure, but as a rule of thumb, we usually go with about 1/2 inch away. So, which is about 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And place your pin through the holes. And we'll do that with the other side. And even though this is just a single stitch here, we still count that as the edge of the project. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And sometimes, I don't know about anybody else, but I have to like triple check myself sometimes when I'm placing the pins and just to make sure my bifocals are working right that day. So once you have that done, you'll want to measure. And if your project is bigger than, let me move all these supplies. If your project is bigger than a little tiny ruler, that's when you'll want to get a larger ruler to make your measurements. But this one is small enough, I can use this. And you want to measure from pin to pin and determine exactly how big your design is. So this design is 4 3/4 inches by 3 1/8. So sometimes you'll have exact measurements, sometimes you'll be in between, sometimes you'll be a skosh under or a skosh above the measurement. So once you have your measurement here, I always write everything down. Just, you know, we have a notebook, so we write everything down so we don't forget by the time we've done our measurement to our cutting of the Canson board. So we've gone ahead and cut this board 1/8 inch smaller on 2 sides so that you have enough room to have for your wrapping around, and you're not going to end up with a board that's too big. So just a rule of thumb, take 1/8 inch off of the measurement that you have here. So you'd take 1/8 inch off of this side and this side, or whichever side, off of your board measurement. And you take your cutter. Let me grab my other cutter here. Okay. Because I'm telling y'all, if I used this brand new thing on this, my sister would flip her lid. She would holler. So you would cut your mat board and have it to the size. And then you will spray it with the tacky spray on the front of it. Be careful what side you're using. Make sure you're not using this side. You'll flip it over on the white side. You'll spray it with the tacky glue, just a light spray. And you'll put 2 layers of the cotton batting. So we spray the board, put a layer of cotton batting. We spray the layer of cotton batting and put another layer of cotton batting. So I've left it big here so you can see that there's 2 layers. And you're going to take your cutter and you're going to cut right up against the board and cut the excess off. And you want to get your blade right up along your board. See, there's a little fuzzy right there. Make sure you grab that, get that off. And you do want that to be right up against your board. You can choose to do 1 layer of cotton batting. It's just that the whole series of these that I've already done, I have used 2 layers of cotton batting already, so I want to make sure that I'm staying with the same thing for the whole series. And you can see this has only 1 layer of cotton batting and it's perfectly fine. So if you just want to use 1, I think we find ourselves more and more just using 1 layer because it is plenty. But like I said, I've got to keep with what I've already been doing. So that's why I'm doing 2. All right, so we have that board all prepared and we are going to start turning this over to the back. So what you want to do is place your mat board. You can see your pins. So you want to place your mat board here in the center of all the pins. Hopefully my head's not in the way there. And you can see there are all of my 4 pins on the sides. So I do like to start on the longest sides on these on this particular project, from project to project, you may have varying sides that you need to start on for whatever reason, but I do like to start on the long side. And you can tell here I have well over an inch of fabric. I have 1.25 inches on that side and about 1 1/8 inches on this side, which is a little too much to be turning over to the back. On these sides, I have about 5/8. It's about 3/4. But these two sides, I definitely want to trim some off. That's just way too much fabric on the side. Trust me, it's okay if you trim it off, because you don't need all that fabric holding it down to the back. You just really don't. And there's plenty there to grab. So what I do is line my ruler up, not quite on the 5/8. I go a little bit over the 5/8, but not quite to the 3/4. And there's really, I mean, it's really no matter between the 5/8 and 3/4. So wherever you can have your fingers help hold the ruler there, and you just glide your rotary along there, and then you can see you still have way plenty to pull over to the back. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this side the same with my ruler. And again, for bigger projects, you need bigger rulers. So there we go. Okay. Oops. Let's grab that little piece, get that off. And then I'm just going to check these sides again, and they should be okay. And I can always trim a little bit more off if I need to on these sides once we get there. Now that we have this prepped, we're going to go ahead with our Aleene's. And as I said, always keep it upside down. These are really cute jars from dried beef. I think it's from Hormel. And these are the cutest jars. They have little stars up here. You just wrap some baker's twine around and it looks really cute in your studio or wherever you craft. So you want to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on here, not getting too close to the edge. Let me lift this up here for you without moving it. So you don't want to get too close to the edge over here and over here, because I'll explain a little bit more later, but you just don't. So I hope you can see exactly how much glue is on there. And you do want to make sure that it's all along here and not just like dots along here, because you want to make sure that your fabric can adhere the whole way down the length of the board. So we're going to go ahead and pull this up. I almost lost my pin there. Did y'all see that? So you want to pull that up to where your pin is. And I did pull my pin out, but I can still see what row I have it in, which is right here. This row right here. So I want to make sure that all across here is along that line where my pin is. Let me just double check here. And that's perfect. So you can now pull your pin out. We're going to go to the other side. And we're going to do the same exact thing. Again, leaving some empty space down there at the end. You don't want too close to the edge. Hopefully you can see that glue. Okay. And you want to give it a little bit of a pull. You don't want to yank it to tomorrow, but you want to pull enough so that you're pulling your pin to the edge of the board. So you want to make sure that your pin is there. Let me just take a look before I get close up there for you. Let my bifocals do their job here. And there we go. Now take the pin out. Okay, now double check myself there. got some little bit brighter light there for the studio here. Let's see. Make sure that I'm good. And take your time. You don't want it to be crooked. Like I pulled a little bit too much right there. Okay. So you just lift it up, put it back down. The glue doesn't dry in 2 seconds, so that's really helpful when you're doing this. Okay, got it. Now, double check yourself from side to side here and make sure that you're not off kilter. And I am just a little on that side. So I want to fix that right away. And if you have to lift, you just put a little bit more back down and repress, because you want to make sure that you're perfect side to side. Okay? There we go. Make sure I'm still back on my line, and I am, and this is how it's looking so far. Okay, great. Now we're going to move on to the short sides here. And I forgot that you do need a pair of scissors. And if you hold on 1 second, these ones are kind of iffy. Okay. So here we go. We are going to take snippet off of each corner. That's why we don't glue all the way to the end, because we don't want all of that fabric to have to turn under back here. You don't want, and you don't need it. You don't want it, and you don't need it. So we just take the triangle off of each side. Just like that. Everybody see that? We have one more side. And I find this works really well with little scissors, but if all you have is, bigger scissors, that's okay too. Just make sure they can cut your Aida. This is raw natural linen. So Weigert raw natural linen. I absolutely love this fabric. We use it for a couple different of our, what do I call them? Sets or collections of different things that we cross stitch. So if you also have any of these little things flinging, just go ahead and get those off too. Okay, there we go. Clean your workspacer a little bit. Now, what we're gonna do is lift the corner a little bit and glue right in here. And we're gonna glue right in there. And we're going to do the same thing over here. A little bit of glue here. And a little bit of glue here. Can everybody see that? Hopefully. Okay. And we're going to ever so gently pull the Aida without moving our side spots. We're going to pull our Aida up this way. And we're going to glue it just like so. We're going to press down into our glue, maybe even a little bit further. And I might want to trim off just a little bit more of that piece. Okay. Like I said, you just don't need it in there. We're going to do the same over here. We're going to pull on our Aida or your cross stitch fabric. You can do this with linen too. We're going to pull it up, put your nail, your thumbnail, or if you have trouble with fingers, you can use your wood stick here and just press it down here along the edge of the board. Okay? And I always keep a wet cloth here so you can get some of the glue off that might be damp, so you're not getting glue on the front of your project. And there was me putting my glue the wrong direction. So again, just a little bit there and there, there, and in the corner there to help hold your fabric down out here, okay? And you want to go ahead and pull your fabric up here, press down here, make sure that you've got it pulled in and you have a slight angle here where you're pulling it in. Okay, hold down just for a little bit. Let's get that a little further. Okay, and then take a look at your sides. Adjust if you need to, making sure you didn't pull too much like I did right here. Okay, and that one's great. This one I did a little too much. Let's take our time and fix it right. Okay, all right. Okay, I feel like I need a little bit more glue in here. I feel like it's popping up a little bit. And I felt like this one was popping up a little bit. Okay, now I got a little glue here. So again, this wet cloth is really good for that. Just to get any wet glue so it's not on the front of your design. Okay? Get it off your fingers. When you're working with Aida, the glue does tend to go through when you're doing this end process here. It does tend to go through and get on your work surface, so make sure you protect your work surface if you're on a good table or such. Now we want to go ahead and run our glue along the ends here, just like that. You want to have enough, but not too much. And again, you don't want to just like dot it on. You want to make sure that it's the whole way so that the fabric has something to adhere to the whole way across. And again, when we are pulling the ends up here, you want to make sure that you've got it flat against here, against the edge of the Bristol board. And you want to pull the ends up first and use your other fingers to press down the middle of the fabric. And then you want to go ahead, I just swiped my finger in the glue there from the other side. You want to go ahead and check where your pin is. And you want to make sure that you've got your pin on the end. Make sure that the holes are there where you want them to be. Sometimes you got to recount it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here we go. In case your eyes lose sight of it, want to make sure that you stay where you're at. For my case, it's at 7. It's a little tight right there. Okay. Okay. And you want to make sure that you're pressing here on the ends where you have your folds over. Press down, lay it down, and you can use all your fingers to press that down because you want to make sure that your corners are nice and straight like this. Now we're going to go ahead and do the other side. And we're going to pull on our ends first, making sure, again, that that fabric in there doesn't bubble up on you and create a big lump out here. And then look at your end and make sure that you're where you want to be. Again, for me, it's at 7. Okay. And again, making sure that you're not having any lumps on these edges right here and here. So we have finished gluing the first part, and now we will make sure that you put something heavy, like you can sit your glass jar on here for just a couple minutes. You want to just let that glue get real nice and stuck on there. Let it set up a little bit while you're working on the rest of it. So we're going to take, actually, let me have that back for a second. So I do want to tell you to take your final measurement of your design. So I've got a little over 4.5 by 3. A little over 4.5, a little over 3. You're going to add an inch to that measurement. If you would like to see, I'll show you one of these. If you'd like to have an inch of fabric around, you add an inch to your finished measurement of that piece that we just finished. So let me make sure I've got my, if I added an inch around for this one. No, for these ones I did 5/8, 3/4. I did 3/4 all the way around. So you want to add 3/4 measurement to this measurement. If you want an inch, you'd add an inch. This particular design, we did add an inch, but on this Lizzie Kate projects that I'm doing, I added 3/4 of an inch. So add that to your add that number to your design, and don't forget to add it for each side. So 3/4 of an inch doubles, and it's 1.5 inches that you'd be adding to your measurement. So I've got 4.5 by 6 and 1/8. Sorry, my ruler's not long enough here. 6 and 1/8, because I was a little over 4 inches wide. So you want to cut 4 pieces of the mat board for this next part. One of the pieces is going to get 1 piece of Warm and Natural or Warm and White, either one, or your favorite cotton quilting batting. You're going to use the tacky spray again and add 1 layer to this, and you're going to use your Olfa cutter or whatever rotary cutter you have to go ahead and trim off your edges here. Okay. And so you've got 4 pieces, 1 with the quilt batting and 3 just plain. The one with the quilt batting is going to be the front piece that you will see. That's why it has the quilt batting. I do like to add the quilt batting to that piece. I just think it makes the front of it look a little bit fluffy, and I like that look. You don't have to add it, but I do recommend it. And it is personal preference, but I do recommend it for your finished project. You want to go ahead and get your fabric that you're using for your project, and you want to make sure, and I'm going to have to go off camera and recut my fabric because I was trying to use these scraps from a quilt and those aren't big enough. So I will use this one that I just that we just cut because it is big enough. So you want to make sure that your fabric is big enough around, and again, 5/8 is plenty of fabric to go around your edges. You do not need any more than that. If you're uncomfortable, you can go to 3/4, but again, you do not need any more than that. And we'll be right back as soon as I cut the rest of my fabric. Okay, I'm back. I had to find the fabric, and Isabella helped cut all new pieces, and then we had a cantaloupe disaster downstairs in the kitchen, and it rolled right off the counter, and Yes, cantaloupe and seeds were all over the kitchen floor, so Karina had to clean that up, and I realize you don't know how long we took a break there, but anywho, we're back. I have the right size of fabrics for the boards, and let's get back to it. So, hopefully you can see all 4 of my pieces here, and one of the boards that's just plain without the quilt batting, this is the one with the quilt batting, that piece of fabric needs to be taller. So you want to leave yourself the, you know, you can do 1/2 inch down here or 5/8 down here. You really don't need any more than that. 5/8 is plenty. And then you can use 1.5 inches here at the top of one of your boards. So if your design is horizontal, you're going to make sure your fabric is, you know, lengthwise and that the top of it is on your longest side. If your design is vertical, you'd want to make sure that your fabric was taller at the top of the board. So just whichever direction your design is going, make sure that your extra fabric for folding over for the back piece is taller. Again, this is the back piece of your project. So we're going to go ahead and move these ones out of the way, and here's our nice dried November. Looks great. And here we go, the one with the quilt batting. Try to make sure there's no fuzzies or kitty hairs. Just looked and I'm like, oh, okay, there's a cat hair on there. So take your design, and you can see I'm on the salvage here, and you know, we're just gonna cut that off so it doesn't hinder your design at all. Even if you're using a scrap of fabric and you have the salvage, if you just have enough of the salvage to turn over to the back, you know, to make it past the salvage, that's fine too. So just make sure that you have enough fabric for your project. I'm gonna go ahead and trim off the outermost part of that piece and begin gluing. Now, because it's been so long, I have some glue there at the end of my thing, so I'm just gonna wipe that off with a scrap of my quilter's cotton. If you just take that, you can see, voila, cleans that right up. It's perfect. No need to use a paper towel or a tissue because it'll just stick, and you can see that's a very clean tip now. So you want to get your glue across all the way, and don't get too close to the edge. If you do, just wipe it off and then wipe it on your towel. And you're going to fold this piece up. I did forget to mention, if you have directional fabric, make sure that your fabric is the direction that you need it to be whenever you're cutting it. I do not have directional fabric, in case anyone was wondering. I do not have it for this particular project. You can use directional fabric when finishing cross stitch. It is not a problem at all. Just pay attention when you're doing your gluing. So you want to make sure that you pull on your fabric, and you want to get it tight. I have some arthritis in my hand, so I know a lot of people have that same type of issue, arthritis in your hands. You can just pull it as hard as you can. Okay, so we are now at the point where you're going to trim off your triangles on the edges. And get all 4. And again, this is why we don't glue clear to the edge, because we need to trim that off and make sure that we're moving our fabric over enough when we're turning it over and pulling it up. I'm going to take a little bit more off of these two. Okay, there we go. Gluing in the corner, underneath here, in there. And again, we're gonna pull the fabric up. You don't really want the fabric to buckle right here or fold over. You want it to stay flat. If it does buckle just a tiny smidgen, that's okay. You don't want a big fold over of your fabric here on the corner as you're doing this, because it will cause too much bulk on the back of your piece. And you can see we don't have bulk happening here on the back. Okay, this side. Okay. And again, you want your finger down along the edge of the board. Press it into the glue that you have in the corner there. Sometimes if it's giving you a fit, you can put a tiny bit more glue under there to get it to stay. But again, a little goes a long way when you're gluing. We want to run our glue along there again. Pull your edge up here, make sure it's tight. Pull your edge up on this side, make sure that it's tight. Use your fingers again. Give it a little tug. I don't know if you can see when I did that, it did move the fabric a little, which is good because we want that to be snug on the edge here. And then you want to take a look at your work and make sure that everything is snug to the back. And right here, I want to pull a little bit more. I don't know if you can see there on the edge. Okay. And now it's straight, nice and flat. This side. Okay. Is anyone else stitching anything for fall right now? Are you still doing summer? Or are you starting your Christmas in July? I am working on a Santa, a Lizzie Kate Santa. I'll get my elves on that. Now, if you see I have this little extra flap of fabric, I don't really want all that fabric back there. So I'm going to go ahead and trim some of that off. Can't do it in the air there. And my scissors have seen a better day. I need to sharpen them. But let's get that trimmed off. And I ran a little bit more glue along there because I want this to lay flat here. I want this piece of fabric to be flat. So again, on this side, I have a little bit of excess fabric there. I want to go ahead and trim that off as well. Oh, these scissors. Lord have mercy. I definitely need to sharpen my scissors. Okay. And there's a little piece right there. Okay. Now I want a little tiny bit of glue here. Again, to hold that down. And see how this is loose here in the middle. I also, my little fairies are handing me scissors that might cut better. Over here on the side, they're making me laugh. Okay, so I just want to have all that stay down nice and tight. Okay, nice and tight. Trim your threads, which might come back again. You know how fabric is. Anyway, I'm stitching a Lizzie Kate thing that is called I'll Get My Elves on That, and he's on some kind of really big fabric, 10 count. It's really cute. It's a I don't know what it is. Clostern? Yeah, Clostern. Nana says it's Clostern. Is my camera doing okay there? Camera was tilting there a little bit. Sorry about that. Okay. We're going to move on to the next piece. No fluff. I call it fluff. And if you have a salvage, this is okay over here. You don't have to worry because it's going to be inside your project. And you can cut a little bit of that off and still be fine. We have plenty to turn to the back. Okay, let's get moving here. Again, pull your fabric over, press. See all those little pieces fling off there. Okay, same scissors, but these ones are cutting way better than the other pair. What's everyone's favorite scissors? I love these little Fiskars. They're so hard to find now, except in the orange. And I just like the colored ones so much better, but can't find those anymore. We like gingers for cutting fabric. Everybody has a pair, gingers. And we like the bigger Fiskar for just general paper projects when we're scrapbooking. We like Cutter Bee for paper. I love Cutter Bee scissors for paper. I do not like Cutter Bee scissors for fabric at all. I don't think they work for fabric at all. So what's everyone else's favorite scissor? We're going to cut the little triangles off of the sides here. There we go. Let's get this. Get that little piece right there. Okay, one more. There we go. I always have a garbage can here on the end of the cutting table to catch all the stuff that I fling around all over the floor. Then we have to do a deep vacuum once we're done in here because the threads and stuff go everywhere, and when you have kitties, definitely have to be careful with that for sure. Okay, we're doing our corners here. All right, get that done. Like to have a little more glue there. I don't like how much is still here, so I want to get a little bit more of this off. Okay. All right. This side. And pull there. Again, you want to have a slight angle here on the sides. And here, same. Again, time to wipe fingertips with the cloth. Want a little bit more glue under that one. Okay. And some glue along the edge here. Moving right along. And here we go. Okay. Pull your fabric up on the ends. Make sure that it's tight and that you don't have any lumps on the ends. And the other side, maybe a little bit more glue right there. Again, I'll show you the glue. Okay, pull this side up. Pull this side up. Again, the key is to have these as flat as possible, and you don't want these lumps on the side. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. With these scissors. Okay. Just a little too long right there. Okay. Again, half my crumbs go on the floor. My crumbs. My little fabric flings. Okay. What did everyone do for the 4th? Did you have a barbecue? Did you have a picnic? Did you go somewhere? Did you host? Did you see fireworks? We just heard fireworks because we were watching a Hallmark mystery movie. It was so good. Okay. And again, I'm just going to take the glue because I want this to be really flat on the back. And I forgot to turn it over. So I'm checking all of my sides here and here, making sure that they're nice and flat. And the side here. Okay. Nice and flat here. Okay. Nice and flat. We don't want any large lumps back here. And you can see, I'll probably put a little bit more glue there, but I'm taking a look at it myself. You can see, hopefully, that there are no big lumps or anything on the back here, because you can't have that when you're doing a flat fold. I am just going to say I think generally that you don't really want any lumps on the back when you're folding over your fabric or your cross stitch. You don't really want lumps at all on the back. There's ways around it, like the method that we suggest and that we do here at One Nana Two Girls with cutting that V off the corner. Okay, this is our back piece. So sometimes if you need to, you can write on here. If you have directional fabric, you can draw an arrow so that you know which side is the top of your board, so you have a visual reminder. Okay, I have directional fabric. I need to put my top of my fabric up here. And you can also write on here that this is your back piece, so you know this is the back one. I need this extra tall side back here. So again, just gonna move this over, and I am gonna cut this off. I have plenty of fabric. On the back piece, you always do the bottom. So this is your top up here with your extra fabric. You always do the bottom first. This extra fabric is for another step. So you fold your bottom up here, and see how beautiful this is. Such beautiful fabrics that we're using for these projects. And again, we're going to trim the sides on the back piece. Again, see, we're trimming off that triangle piece. And just going to grab those threads. Same method. Don't go to the edge because we need to put some glue there. And we need to fold this up over. Okay. I'm trying to pull my board down at the same time as pulling my corner up here, because I don't want any lumps along the bottom. So I'm pushing my board down this way as I'm holding and doing my corners over here and over here, because you want it to be nice and flat down here, so you can give your board a good shove down this way. You don't want anything gapping down here. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and do the sides on this. This is the back, so we're going straight away to the sides. You do not do anything with this top part yet. Again, we are folding this up, gluing down, using our fingers and our hand to pull that tight. Okay. And you can shove your board this way, down this way, and over this way a little bit. And now we're going to, little piece of fuzz there. Don't want that sticking out the bottom. And we're going to take, and you can see, there's our kitty. He's meowing, one of our kitties. You can see that I had a little lump under there, so I just wanted to pop that back up and make sure that, okay, for some reason my camera shut off, so hopefully this is where we picked up. But we've got all of our pieces. I had Isabella go ahead and do the other one of the boards. So we have all 4 of the pieces finished. This is the back piece with the flap. Just make sure that you don't have any fuzzies on your boards. Make sure that everything is glued down, and you want your back piece, because we are actually going to add a piece of ribbon to this back piece for the connector. And that is going to be centered here, but let me trim some of this off real quick. I don't need all this fabric back here. We just don't, because it could cause lumps and bumps, etc. Lumps and bumps. Okay, now let me just, sorry, I went off camera there a little bit, I think. Let's just get this trimmed a little bit more here. Okay. And I do like to take the glue, go along here, make sure this is pressed down tight. Again, press that down. Up here, I will be cutting off the triangles up here, but I want to get the ribbon here first for you attached. If you have one of these awesome grid rulers, I actually line my design up with one of the thick markings on the ruler here to center it, so I know just where I need the ribbon to be. And I use one of these small rulers next to the ribbon so I know how long I need it to be. You do want about, if I can get this ruler up in here, you want about 1.5 inches up in your design, and then you want to allow for about 2.5 inches for the spacing underneath here. So you need your 1.5 here, you need your 2.5 inches, and then you need another 1.5 inches to go up into the project on the other side. So in total, you're going to need about 6 inches of ribbon. Okay, lost my scissors again. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and get this side glued. So I put a little bit of glue here and here onto the fabric, almost down to the edge here, and up onto the mat board. So I also use my little ruler to make sure that I have it centered correctly inside this section of the project. You're going to take your next board, which is one of the flat boards. Again, your puffy board is for the top layer. You do want to have one of your flat boards, and that's what's going to go on next. So we are ready to trim your triangles here and here. Okay. And a little bit of glue in here, a little bit of glue on this side, and a little bit of glue up further, not down here. We're going to put some glue down there later. So you want to angle this in just like we did on all the other pieces, just a little bit. Okay. Now we are going to glue the next board onto this back piece with our alines. See that lifting there? So you want to make sure that you have glue underneath. Go ahead and get this all around the edge. And you want enough glue, because here's where your paintbrush comes in. We're going to smooth out this glue and get it clear to the edge of our project. And we want to lift up that piece that was lifting on us. Make sure it's down. Okay. Very carefully turn your project. Keep going with your paintbrush. You want to have a dry paintbrush when you do this. You don't want it to be damp. You want it to be dry. And yes, you're going to stick it into water to rinse it, but then you're going to use your damp cloth to blot it on when you need your paintbrush again. So now we're going to dot glue all in the middle section here. Don't forget to get on top of your ribbon. You want to make sure that all areas are coated with the glue like that. Hopefully you can see that. And you want to make sure your glue is coming out to the edge. I do like to see a little bit more glue over here on the edge. And I did put my brush in water. You don't want to leave tacky glue sit on your paintbrush, because it's hard to get it out. Just have to use some really hot water. But you don't want to have to do that in the middle of your project. Okay, give your fabric a pull this direction and take your board. Again, if your fabric's directional, make sure you pay attention to that. Check all your sides. Make sure that you are lined up on all 4 sides. Press down. Stand your project up. Stand your boards up on all the sides. This will appear loose right here because we haven't pulled it over to it's where it's going to be yet, and we don't do that yet, just not yet. So you want to press this together really tight, and you want to take your next flat board and you want to now it's time that we're going to glue our connector ribbon in. So we're going to put a little glue here and make sure that you get it down here near the bottom and up onto the white. Make sure that you're even. Line up your boards. I always put my ruler here next to my project, and you do have to tug on that back piece to get the fabric up tight. I line my ruler up next to the ribbon so that I know that I'm gluing it in the right place. So for 2.5 inches in between, you're gonna fold your ribbon up to 1 1/4. I have some glue on my fingertips. Let's get that off. So you want to have your ribbon at 1 1/4 inches right here. And press your ribbon down. Make sure it's lined up with the bottom piece. Again, make sure that your boards are all lined up. Put glue along the top edge here of your board. Make sure you have enough there. And we need our paintbrush again. So rinse out your brush and dab it on your cloth so it's not wet, because we are going to take the tip of our glue bottle and we're actually going to lightly dab glue all along the top here. And with our dry brush, it is really dry since I did that, you're going to brush out this glue. This is so important to brush this glue along here. You want to make sure that you're hitting this backboard as well as these 2 boards up front with your brush. Okay. So you want to have your glue along there. You want to have your glue already done here, because now it's time to make the magic happen and pull this over, which will create our top hinge for the project, for the flat fold. So when you're pulling your fabric from the back piece over to the top of this, you want to make sure that it's tight and keep your cloth nearby, but you also want to make sure that you are right here at the edge of your pieces of board. So you want to take this and maneuver it over to the edge of your board. You don't want to be hanging off the edge over here, and you don't want to be too far this way, because this is visible whenever you are finished with your project. So you want to make sure that you take caution to do that step. And this is really important to get this tight. So get it down and then take your project and turn it over and run your thumbs or your hand up, and you can see how there's still some loose fabric. If you can't see that, I apologize, but there is still some loose fabric. So you want to pull from the front, from this side. You're going to pull your fabric while you hang on to it and just tighten that up. You don't want loose fabric back here because it'll sag and it'll be loose down here and it just doesn't look good. So you want to make sure that it's nice and tight. And then you want to run your fingers across the top because remember we put glue there with our paintbrush, and you do want this to stick, but you don't want excessive glue because you don't want glue coming through your fabric. So just take your time when you're doing that. Not too much because you don't want your glue to dry, but take your time, put your glue on there, brush it out. Pull up over. Now you can see how much excess fabric I have right here. I am going to trim that off. Thanks for sticking with me, everybody. This takes a while, but I just want you to have instructions that are easy to understand so that you can finish your projects too. If you are not wanting to finish your own type of flat fold here, we actually sell pre-made flat folds and pre-made ornament backs, all kinds of pre-made custom sizes if you need anything for a specific project. They're all on our Etsy store, so feel free to shop our Etsy store for all different kinds of fabrics. And if there's not a fabric that you're looking for, please let us know because we have more to pick from for the fall and Christmas season, for the summer, Easter. So if it's not there and you don't see what you're looking for, just send us a note and let us know what it is that you're looking for. Okay, go ahead and make sure that your corners are down nice and tight. You can put a little extra glue there. You want those down nice and flat. We're taking our front piece and we're laying it here, and we're going to bring back our design. And you just want to see which way that you might like it better because we don't have a directional fabric. And I just want to have a look, see at what leaves do I want at the top and what leaves do I want at the bottom. And I think I like it this way. I really like these leaves up at the top. Okay, so that's just how I decide. And you're going to take your glue again around the outer edge of your top piece with the fluff. I call it fluff. I'm sorry, the quilt batting. I call it fluff all the time. Get your glue around here. You want enough glue. You can always go back and add a little more. Don't get over the edge there. Okay. And we're gluing. All right, taking our paintbrush again. I was getting a little wild there with the water. There we go. Dry off your brush again. Make sure it's dry. Use your brush to flatten that glue all the way around. I never, ever use hot glue. And I can say that with certainty. Never do I use hot glue on these types of projects. Hot glue I reserve for wreath making, swag making. Every now and then I may have to hot glue for a lantern swag, but not very often because we use a lot of zip ties. You can see my glue is coming out to the edge all the way around, nice and even. Make sure you're getting those corners really well. Grab your glue again, dot all around the middle. Okay, make sure there's enough in there. Hopefully you can see that. Oh, I want a little bit more right there. Okay, good. Now, after all that, make sure that you have it the way that you want it. And again, I want my leaves at the top. And we're going to be placing that right down on there. Get the glue off your fingers. This is precious cargo here. We do not want glue on the top of our project. Go ahead and make your boards even by tapping on all four sides. Make sure that it's even all the way around. If it's off a little bit, go ahead and maneuver it to where it is not off. Sometimes you have to push. Sometimes you have to pull, push, pull, whatever you need to do. And you will take the quilting clips and you're going to clip all the way around the edge here. And you're going to put that in a heavy press. So you're going to go ahead and clip. Make sure you get these clips. I have used clothespins before I discovered that the clips would work. Just make sure that you have tight clothespins, like really good fresh clothespins, so that they hold it tight. So you want to get all around the corners first. And I'm pressing down in the middle so some of that glue adheres in the middle right quick, so it doesn't pop open on me there. And you're going to put this in a press. Really heavy books. Get out those old encyclopedias that are sitting on your shelf. I use ball glass jars that are like 6 in a package, so they're really heavy. So I use those to sit on top of the project, and I leave it in for several hours actually to let that glue dry. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll be back with attaching the top to the project. Hey, we are back. This is dried. All the clips we're going to take off, okay? Isn't this gorgeous? Beautiful fabrics. So just take off all of your clips or your clothespins. I love these quilting clips. If you can't find these anywhere, let us know. We can stock them if people need them. That's not a problem at all. I also forgot to show you the Kreinik custom quarter. These are in the shop, fully stocked. This is what we use to make the trim around the project. And if you can see this trim around here, we just use DMC floss. We use the quarter. We make our trim. We have a tutorial actually of how to use this machine to make the trim out of your floss and use it for your project. It's super quick, super easy. We can make trim for projects within minutes. It's very fast. So check out our tutorial and then head to our shop and pick yourself up one of these custom quarters. Now we're ready for gluing this top piece down to the flat fold. Okay, so you can see, nice, everything's looking great. You've got your connector piece here. Everything looks fab. Awesome, it came out beautiful. Use your rulers. Hopefully you have, 2 rulers. If not, just take it one side at a time. And what I do is line up from side to side and from top to bottom, and make sure that I've got my design on here straight and not crooked at all. Okay? It's a little crooked side to side. All right. Let me just double check. Side to side, top to bottom. We're at 3/4. Okay. So you want to get everything lined up, and we leave our rulers on there. So just gently pick up. If your ruler slides or gets knocked off, don't fret. It's no big deal. All right, we're going to go ahead and put the glue on the back of our piece of cross stitch. And make sure you have a generous amount there around the corners. Go ahead and get this. Edges. Okay. Get your paintbrush again. Dry it off. Want to make sure it's dry. You don't want any extra moisture when you're smoothing out your glue. This is such a great technique of smoothing out your glue, so you can get your glue clear to the edge of the design and fabric. You don't want any part of your edges of your design lifting up off of your flat fold, okay? And again, like I said before, if you would prefer to order your flat fold pre-made from us, we have beautiful fabrics, complementary fabrics for any design. And if you're looking for something specific, please just send us a message on Etsy and we'll be able to accommodate all of your custom requests. There hasn't been one custom order that we haven't been able to fulfill, so that's great. If you like making your own, we love teaching you how to do it. All right, make sure your design is right side up on your board. Been there, done that, y'all. Don't know if anybody else has ever had a problem like that, but I'm moving my ruler up to this way. So I have a eyeball of 3/4 of an inch on top and bottom. All right, now this is where you eyeball, move your rulers side to side. I love these little rulers. If you can't find them anywhere, let us know. We can stock them. Not a problem at all. All right, I've got 3/4. There's a fuzzy. Get that off of there. I've got 3/4 on all sides. Pick up your project. Take a look-see at it. Sometimes our visual field, when you're just looking at something rather than just relying on your rulers, just take a second, look at it, press, and that is a finished flat fold. All right, so go ahead and sit your, I have a really heavy jar of my clips. I'm gonna go ahead and sit this off to the side real quick. And let's finish this up with a beautiful ribbon. I've got a lovely ribbon here. Let's go ahead and finish this up with a beautiful ribbon and do a little, I have a bow tutorial, so I'm just gonna go ahead and make the bow here. If you need help with a bow tutorial, please just see ours and I can help you with that by watching the bow tutorial. Okay, sorry, just gathering some pins here, and let's adjust the bow here just a little bit. All right, and all right, I'm gonna do that. Start over one more time so I can just talk through that. We're gonna take ribbon and flip it over to the left, creating a loop. I like the tail a little bit longer. I had to get the project so I can see exactly how big I need my bow. Want it a little bit bigger. Want it to be about that big, maybe a little bit smaller of a loop. All right, take the other side, loop it over. This is just Offray ribbon from Michaels. You can get your ribbon from us. We sell ribbon, yes. You can get your ribbon from Hobby Lobby. Walmart has some ribbon. Y'all, our Walmart like totally revamped itself. I don't know what they're doing. They said they're doing a complete renovation and they like clearanced out, something wrong with that pin. They like clearanced out all the ribbon and all the fabric. They're not gonna have bolts of fabric anymore. I was like, well, that's really silly. All right, so you have both your sides. You have your project here. You're gonna eyeball about how big your loops are. And what I do is fold it, I pin it there in the middle and I fold it over and I take my pinky finger in there or you can take a stick and see if one of them is longer than the other. And this loop is slightly longer than this one. So I can feel that when I put my finger in there. So hopefully you can see the difference there. Take the pin out, pull that side of the bow ever so slightly. Okay, put my pin back in and grab your dual duty thread. Dual duty Coats and Clark. We are having technical problems today. My video just shut off again. All right, you want about, let's measure here. Oh, about a yard of thread. You don't have to have it that long, but I like to have thread. Thread is the cheapest part of your project that you're going to use today. That is Nana's famous saying every time she's taught a class. So we're going to take our thread. I use a tiny little needle. It's a quilting needle. So I use a tiny little needle. You don't have to use that tiny of a needle, but a John James, I use John James 24 to cross stitch with. That it's too big of a needle. So you need a sharper needle than that. So that's why I use a quilting needle. So you've got your two sides of your bow, you've got it pinned, and you want to go ahead. Actually, let me cut that off. Let's cut this off. I fold it in half and I give myself a little bit extra to make sure I have enough on one side, on both sides. Pick up your needle. And you want to thread your needle so that you have the loop. So you're putting two ends through the eye of the needle so that you've got your loop on one side and your loose threads on the other. Take it at the very bottom of your bow. And you're going to take tiny little 1/8 inch stitches right up alongside. Pulled my thread there. Does it happen to you guys all the time? It happens to me all the time because my skin is so dry. It's very humid, but I have a tangle. I have my thread in a tangle, y'all. Not my tinsel, just my thread. Okay, I think I've got it. I am struggling. Mother biscuit. All right, here we go. Lord have mercy. Got it. Okay. You're going to take little stitches up your bow like this, up all the way. Please pardon the clock playing in the background if you can hear it. It is a beautiful Thomas Kincaid clock, and it plays a Christmas medley. It's so beautiful that, y'all, we are just not taking it down. So it plays a Christmas medley, and we don't care because we love it so much. All right, take your pin out, and you've got your stitches up through the ribbon. Hopefully that's focusing for you. Hang on to the ribbon with one hand and pull your threads tight with the other hand so you have this scrunched up in the middle, and take your thread and wrap it around a few times, and then give your thread another tug because you want this tight in the middle of your bow. You want these threads nice and tight there. I hope that's focusing for you. Wrap a couple more times now that you have it tight. Okay. And it looks like that. Turn it over and grab your needle. Take your needle up through just little bits of the ribbon. Y'all, this thread and I are having a day. Oh my goodness. Lord have mercy. Okay, got it. All right, take it up through again. Make sure you're not wrapped around yourself. I think it's because it's so hot outside. And if it's tough, I just put my needle down on the mat and I shove it up through to make it nice and tight. All right, now leave that thread attached. And I'm doing a 2-layered bow. So leave that thread attached. Get your second ribbon. Okay, get your second ribbon. And it should be smaller than your first ribbon. Okay, this is 5/8, this is 3/8. Same process. Take the right over to the left and then loop around the left one. And you want to have your bow that you just made so your loops are not bigger than your first bow that you just made. And you want to make sure that your tails, I mean, you can cut them off, but just so you're not wasting too much ribbon, because I'm a ribbon snob and I love ribbon and I have way too much of it. But you don't want to waste too much of your ribbon. So just get an eyeball there. And again, stick your pin down through the middle, like this. And then swing your loops around to the back and see if they're even. Again, this side's a little bit bigger. Take your pin out. Okay, fix that. Take your loops again around to the back. Looks great. Okay. Leave your thread on there. Get yourself another piece of thread. It doesn't have to be a yard of thread. That's probably why I was having such a tangle, because I had too much thread. When y'all are cross stitching, do you use like really long pieces of floss, or do you use like moderate? I use moderate, but my dad, he uses longer pieces of floss and it drives me nuts. Just saying. Okay, y'all, can't get it threaded. Now. All right, I might have to thread it off camera and come back because this is not cooperating at all. If you have that problem, and I am using a really small eye, you can snip it. Just snip the thread off and start with two ends that are freshly cut. And only one side went in. It must be the heat, y'all. I don't know. There. Lord have mercy. Me and this thread. I don't think I'll use this spool of thread anymore. It's just going to go back in the drawer. Mr. Brown Thread, you are not welcome. All right. And you're going to sew up from the bottom to the top of the ribbon alongside that pin. Take out your pin. Again, scrunch it and wrap your thread around the middle. Give it a good pull. I didn't cut my ribbon off. yet, but that's okay. All right, straighten out your bow. And you're gonna sew through the back again. And this time you're gonna go ahead and tie this. Actually, I'm not gonna tie this one off because I'm gonna go ahead and cut this even. And I'll cut my thread off of the other half, the other part of the bow. I left that thread on there, but I'm actually just gonna cut that off. So I've got two parts of my bow, and I am leaving my needle attached. And I'm going to put the centers together, and I'm going to actually wrap the thread all around the middle of both pieces of the bow, just like so. Again, attach on the back. Sometimes it's hard to get through the grosgrain. I love grosgrain ribbon. It's my favorite to work with. All right, and take your little loop here to finish off. I'm going to tie off my thread here on the back. Okay, and I always just take the thread and shove it through to the other side. After I'm done tying it off, snip my ribbon, snip my thread. Don't cut the ribbon. Lord, we might have to give a swear word about that or something. I don't know, but no, I'm just teasing. Okay, here we have our finished bow. We have our finished flat fold here. And we're going to take one of these tiny little Dritz bridle pins. These are just teeny tiny little Dritz. You can also get the Hobby Lobby brand. Sorry, that's backwards. You can get the Hobby Lobby brand. This is size 17, number 33. That confused the heck out of me, but anyway, more on that later. But that's what size pin that I use. And I take the pin, I put it in the back of the bow, and I find the center with my ruler, the center of my cross stitch. And I take that pin and I push it right down there in the center, and voila, you have a completed, finished project. And I'm going to go ahead and snip these little frays off. I use Flosstube. We sell it on the Etsy store, and I use Flosstube on the ends of my ribbons so that they don't keep doing that. But this is a finished flat fold, finished mounted flat fold. This is the Flosstube that we carry. It is excellent. It's non-toxic, non-flammable. Shake well before using. Apply a small amount. So you, we always take just like a little scrap piece of board underneath like this, and we just apply a teensy tiny little amount to the end. This one already frayed already, to prevent that from fraying, and it works great. This is a fabulous product. Again, we carry that on our shop. So thank you so much for joining us for this mounted flat fold tutorial. I hope you enjoyed learning about this and enjoyed our techniques. This is a beautiful way to present your cross stitch in your home or as a gift. So thank you so much for joining us here at 1 Nano 2 Girls, and until next time, happy stitching.